such a degree that they want something extra specially bad and perverse to happen to you. And you got to be prepared for it, because you have to stand up for God on your job. You have to stand up for God in your children's school. You're going to have to stand up for God against politicians. And I'm telling you, the last days kind of things are happening with respect to our laws and things that they want to force us to not just accept, but to approve. I don't want to get into that more. And he commanded the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Verse 21. Then these men were bound in their coats, their hosen, their socks, everything flammable. They wanted to make sure they left it on them. And their hats. Come on, man. What is that? Everything flammable. He wanted them to really burn. And their other garments, and were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceeding hot, the flame of the fire slew the men that took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The men that threw them in were burned up. And these three, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound in the midst of the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king was astonished, and rose up in haste, and spake and said unto his counselors, Did not we cast three men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered and said unto the king, True, O king. Verse 25. He answered and said, Lo, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they have no hurt. And the form of the fourth is like the Son of God. Now, I'm not going to read the rest of the story for the sake of time, but we get to the end of this story. Nebuchadnezzar is saying, listen, don't nobody come against the God of Shadrach, Meshach. Amen. 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 But they were bold, man. And because of their boldness, not only did God show up, there was times that God showed up and people had to say, it must be God. You know, like with Jehoshaphat. It must be God. Or Pharaoh, when the wheels started coming off the chariots, they said, oh, it must be God. But God was invisible. Not this time. Because of their boldness, God showed up in a form that they could see. And Nebuchadnezzar looked at him and said, the fourth one don't look like a human. That looks like the Son of God, that fourth person in that fire. Your boldness will cause God to show up on your behalf in such a way that it's undeniable whose you are and who you serve. That's a heart that makes melody with the Lord. That's so powerful. It's so powerful. Let's stand to our feet.